Can we talk about labels?
Yeah. You know, I find identifying as an addict and an alcoholic incredibly powerful. It's my first go-to place of not drinking, is to kind of label myself as that and to know that.
Yep.
Right. So I can't deny the power of identifying and diagnosing something. I was also, you know, we've spoken about this. I was also, when I was at rehab, they identified me as being ADD. I think some people find it very empowering and useful to have that particular diagnosis label. Mm-hmm. For me, when I got to rehab and they went, you know, it's almost the first day there, and they went, look, we've assessed you and we think you're ADD. I was like, that's great, but how do I stop drinking?
Sure. Priorities.
Priorities here.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Doesn't help me with, like, how do I not drink?
Yes.
I think it's interesting, in now I'm able to look at myself a bit more because I'm not clouded in all of the stuff I was clouded in. I can see a bit how my brain works, which I can notice when my brain's a bit, maybe as they were referring to. Mm. But that particular, whatever it was, diagnosis, you know, for me, it's not nowhere near as important as being an alcoholic. Because I think that helps me with my brain more. I'm like, oh, I know how I'm thinking right now because I'm an addict. Because I crave more. Mm. I have this restless anxiety. Mm-hmm. I have this this feeling of having one layer less of skin in the world. This oversensitivity towards things. That label of being an alcoholic is incredibly important to me, because it's changed everything. And it's more than just not drinking now. Mm. It's about how I feel about the world, you know, why I feel the way I feel, why I go into that that kind of Prince of Darkness kind of depression I talked about. So if you're talking about how we perceive people in as far as like labels, yeah, it's really important for me.
Ultimately, what I hear from everything that you say and that you've said is you are more aware of how your brain works and how you are and how you react and how you deal with situations than you've ever been, from a self-awareness perspective, which sounds, and you correct me if I'm wrong, Kit, like previous to that you weren't.
I wasn't, because number one, I was young, and I think people in their 20s, with all due respect, haven't lived enough life to kind of go through some certain moments where they learn about themselves. And number two, you can't learn about yourself properly if you are that befuddled by a substance such as alcohol. You can't step out of those layers of an onion and see yourself. You can't do the work if that's going on. So now, having, you know, been sober a number of years, I really know myself more. I know the processes that are going on. I know that when I slip into a kind of depression, that it is temporary. It's incredibly important to know. People often talk about change or getting to know oneself as an incredibly positive experience, which eventually it is, but it has to be hard won. Like
painful first.
Like good permanent, well, hopefully permanent, solid change takes a painful experience. I used to feel like this. I used to attach, when I was drinking, the idea of leopard never changes its spots. Mm-hmm. And someone once told me, oh, a leopard does change its spots twice in its life. And that meant everything to me. I was like, oh, I can change. It's going to take a momentous effort, but I can change. And that's something I've sort of hung on to, is that analogy.
Yeah, and we can't think the same way forever, right? We're not programmed, or our brains aren't programmed in one way forever.
No.
How did the Hollyoaks role come about?
That was actually an open audition. They were specifically looking to cast someone autistic, and a close family friend sent me a link to like the shout out And so I went to the audition. I got a call back and I didn't expect that. They gave me a sheet of the people I'd be meeting at the audition, what a picture of them, where I'd be, picture of the place, really laid it out for me. All those things that are so helpful, but have never really been done. And I don't think necessarily take up too much time to do.
What did that do for you?
I think being autistic, the uncertainty of certain situations can really not set me up for a great time, because I will be constantly simultaneously not trying to set an expectation just as a person. Let's not go in with crazy expectations or visualize this interaction or plan it out too much, because I don't know what it's going to look like. And if it doesn't look like that, I don't want to freak out.
Yeah.
And so I know, okay, I know when I get there, this is who I'm seeing. And I know what the building looks like. These are things that I don't need to worry about now, because you've given me a description of yourself and your name and your picture. I don't, that uncertainty is gone. And even just, I think the gesture of that meant something for me. I think they were really trying to create a space where anyone that auditioned could really do what they needed to do without added stress, or, they were just trying to set us up for a good time.
And how much of your time at Hollyoaks, being autistic, playing an autistic character, how much of that was you?
There are a lot of things about this character that they wanted to get right, and so they went to me for, and they wanted a reference maybe, and they wanted to understand, and they all did training. And I think there were a lot of traits in them that I really related to from an autistic perspective, because it felt very personal to me, some of those stories. And same with like being trans. I think they kind of tried to go along with my journey as I was growing, and that was really good for me, because I was worried that like I didn't come out for a while, because I was like, I don't want to lose my job. And so they really wanted to get it right. And so it just so happens that my character's journey kind of aligns with my journey in many ways, because I was going through kind of very similar things at the time.
You were in that role sort of 6-7 years. It sounds like there was a lot of effort gone to create as supportive and safe an environment as possible that clearly has been a massive part of your journey.
Yeah, I practically grew up there.
Yeah. So then let me ask you this, what you think about the fact that there was a study done on dyslexia and addiction, people in rehabs, and they found that over 40% of those people in rehabs were dyslexic versus the national average, which is like 4-5%.
Yeah, well, there you go.
Let's talk about that.
Yeah. So I got lucky. My mum was a teacher, and she spotted when I was very young, before dyslexia was much understood, she spotted that I might be having unusual problems, particularly with reading.
Okay.
And writing and stuff like that. Now, as we understand it better, some sort of slightly cliched views of dyslexia, literally backwards letters, words moving, letters moving, and all that kind of stuff, which is, is quite fundamental to it. But I think now that there's a greater understanding of the neurodiverse plasticity of the brain and how dyslexics look at things. So I got quite a lot of help. I got a huge amount of help, and my dyslexia didn't really cause me a great deal of sort of distress or isolation or problems when I was in school. Some.
Were you embarrassed about being dyslexic?
No, I wasn't. But I think that there were a lot of other things that were taking up the embarrassment quotient.
Yep.
I got very, very overweight when I was very young. And that'll sort of do you. There's not a lot of space for other embarrassment there. There's nowhere to hide when you're fat. Nowhere, other than within your own body. But when you're sort of 11, just the very beginnings of puberty as a boy, in the very sort of unguarded schools that I was in, sharing showers with people and stuff like that. And, you know, one or two people have got pubes and one or two people have got noticeably bigger genitals and are starting to look more like men. They're bigger. Well, I had tits. I had a pair of breasts, you know, that fat boys have. So the embarrassment was kind of swallowed up by all of that. And how much store did I put in academic stuff? Maybe not that much. I mean, I don't think I thought that I was clever, but I did enjoy my brain.
Okay.
In a way that I still do. I enjoyed my brain. Like, it sounds kind of arrogant for a comedian, but it's fine. We all are. I knew I was funny.
Even that young?
Yeah, I knew I was funny. Okay. And I really enjoyed making other people laugh. But and the same's true now. I don't ever do a joke that I don't think's funny. Like it tickles me.
Yes.
But I knew I was funny. It's the old stuff. I could do all the teachers. If I couldn't do their voice, I could do their walk. If I couldn't do their walk, I could do their attitude. You know.
Why?
I think that's part of the sort of dyslexic thing, right? So when I looked at words on the page, I saw stuff that other people didn't see. So I couldn't just get through the sentence, which was annoying sometimes, but not very. But I could always see a pun. I could always see a double meaning. I could always see that word sounds like that word. I think, you know, that I could just sort of see the shape of things. And so I can see jokes, you know. It's like the end of The Sixth Sense, you know. I see jokes everywhere. I do. I see funny stuff everywhere in the shape of things. I could see the bones of a teacher, if you know what I mean. I could see one thing about them that was interesting or good or kind of where's the juice? And I'm sure I learned quite quickly as a very fat kid, dyslexic, and building the pile of shame, isolation, all that kind of stuff. I understood very quickly the value of making people laugh. This is instant feedback, right? If you laugh, I did my job. I did it.
Yeah.
I know you've understood
I'm trying not to laugh now.
Yeah, right. If you laugh, I know you've understood what I meant. You must have done because you laughed. Either that or you're having a chimp response and you're so nervous. Yeah. So I think I understood the value of that and it made me feel included.
Let's talk about Heartstopper for a minute because I know you auditioned for the first season.
Yeah.
Just tell me a bit about that, why you went for the role, what attracted you to it.
My mum sent me this. I didn't know my mum. I just deeped. I didn't realize my mum was even on Twitter. But anyway, she sent me this thing. It was like Heartstopper, Netflix Seesaw series, open casting call for young people who resonate with these characters type thing. But it was a list of characters and obviously it did a little description, playing age, who they are. And then you just had to, my mum was like, oh, just go for this and see what happens type thing. And then I sent an email to the casting team and then you have to say which character resonates with you. And I obviously said Charlie, he's a gay character in school. So I did a self-tape. Now I think I did 2 and then I didn't hear anything. It was just, which I gathered was and then obviously I saw the casting, the leads on the Instagram. I went, oh, okay, well that didn't go my way, fine. And then I had a phone call randomly and they were like, oh, hello, we absolutely loved your tape and stuff like that. Sorry it didn't go your way. And I was like, oh, thanks for telling me after you posted the cast. And then they were like, but we've got like some featured extras type thing, like characters with no names. I was student 3, I think it was. And we'd love to audition you for that. And it wasn't really an audition. It was more of just a meeting, but because obviously they've seen me act in them self-tapes. But I did a Zoom with Lucy, who's amazing. She's one of the casting people. And I had to say this, it was quite cringe actually. I had to say this one line. It was, sir, aren't you going to tell Nick Nelson he has to do the match? This one line on Zoom. And it was just like,
say that again?
Sir, I say it exactly how I say it. I'm like, sir, aren't you going to tell Nick Nelson he has to do the match? And it was like one of those things that was like, usually audition, they read you some lines back. And it's like a long scene or something. And it was like, okay. And whenever she's like screen recording the Zoom. It's like, when you're ready, 3, 2, 1, go. Sir, you're going to tell Nick Nelson he has to do the match. And I was like how are they auditioning me with this? Like, that is it, full stop. And then she was like, oh, great. We'll get back to you. And I went, if I don't get this, are you kidding me? One line. I've paid like to be at drama school. I can't even do this one line. And then I got an email, I think it was the next day or something. And like, oh, we'd love Bradley to come in on the 13th of April or whatever it was to do the line. And and I've never been on a set before, and it was the scariest thing I've ever done.
Describe it for me.
Like so first of all, you walk it. Luckily, I wasn't that starstruck because Heartstopper hadn't come out. This was the first season. But I think if it was season 2, I would have been like, oh, I've seen you. But I walked on set, and then everyone was just so nice. Everyone was just like,
Was Nick Nelson there?
Yeah, everyone was there. Yeah, because I have to speak about him. And everyone's like, oh my God, lovely to meet you. Yeah. And they're like, oh, you're student 3. And I'm like, oh my God, is this like a running joke? Am I a joke or something? And they're like, oh yeah, it's like such a funny line, because it is a funny line. And I was like, oh my God, am I meant to be funny in this? And then I started overthinking about how I'm going to say this line. And it was one line, it's not that deep. Then I sat around all day, and they're like, Bradley, you're up. And I went, oh God.
Student 3.
Student 3, Bradley, you're up. And then Nick Nelson walks past, and then I go, and they're like this, go. And I'm like, sir, aren't you going to tell Nick Nelson he has to do the match? And I say it like that. And I think they picked the weirdest take. But after that, Heartstopper came out. It obviously did very well. And then it got renewed for season 2 and 3. And then I was actually doing extra work on Saltburn at this point. So I was in this weird, like, grungy, abandoned building type thing. And I got a random email, and I was like, oh, this is weird. And it was from the person who booked me on Heartstopper. They're like, hi, we're just looking for this new character for season 2 for, I think it's called Electric, like code word. Electric, you kind of get what it was. Because I was like, you've literally emailed me about Heartstopper season 1. And they go Electric, and they're like, we're looking for this character, James. It was like sweet, lovable, gay character, and it goes on a journey with Isaac. I think that's kind of the brief they said. I was like, I mean, I don't care what the brief was. I was like, yeah, of course I'm there. It was like 3 scenes. They're like, could you send in a self-tape by Friday? And I was like,
Have
yeah.
you seen season 1?
Yeah. Yeah, I did. Did I need another self-tape? So I'm going to tell me else to do that. So isn't that enough? And then like by Friday, and I was like, yeah. And then obviously I was on set, so it was a bit hard, but I was like, late night, I'll do it. And we have to give our phones in for Top One, because you can't take pictures of Jacob Elordi if you wanted to. It was like, you can't, because so you have to put them away for like leaking purposes. Then they emailed me the next day and was like, hi, don't worry about the self-tape. Can you do a meeting today? And I went, luckily I learnt the lines. I was like, I need to get these on, get good. And they're like, tomorrow. And I was like, oh my, what? And I was like, I was on set. So I asked the person, I was like, can I go into a corner in this grungy place and just do a Zoom? So, you know, on Zoom, you only see one person. And I swiped across, like, oh God. And it was like the director, the writer, the producer, another producer, the casting team, and then Toby, who plays Isaac. I didn't realize he was going to be on it to read the scenes with me. Then I did the audition, obviously meeting Toby before in season 1. So it was nice. It felt comfortable. Did the audition.
Just over Zoom?
Over Zoom, yeah. And it was 3 scenes. I had a bit more to say this time, and I felt good about it. And then I remember doing the Zoom, and I walk into the room, and like in the scene, I walk in, I go, hey Isaac, and I don't know what came over me, but I left the room and walked through the actual door. And the director goes, could you just do it like just a slate, just stay near the camera? And I was like, oh yeah, that makes sense. And then I had to do a kiss scene via Zoom.
Oh,
so I went, sorry, I've never done a kiss scene via Zoom. How does that work? And they went, just feel it. And I went, okay. So I went, and then I just then felt it. And I was like, I'm not going to put my lips on the camera because that's so embarrassing.